months under ISIS control. This is a new CNN poll that I want to show you. It's out this morning. It paints a sobering picture of how the American public feels about the war on terror. A growing majority displeased overall with that. So we're joined now by Congressman Will Hurd. He's a Republican from Texas on the Homeland Security Committee. He's also a former CIA undercover officer. Thank you. This will be the first congressional response that we have gotten here on our air to Ramadi. Do you think, does this feel like a big victory to you, or should we proceed with caution, even with what seems like a victory now?
It seems like a victory. We should proceed with caution. If we hold Ramadi, this is a good thing for our strategy in that region and against ISIS. And these are the types of things that we should be doing more, and this should have happened 18 months ago. If we give the U.S. military the authority and the ability to go forward and do their job, they can. And you see that with their role playing behind the scenes and training and equip the Iraqi forces. And it shows how, with American leadership, the Iraqi forces can do a lot of things.
Okay, so Congressman, let's talk about that new poll that I mentioned at the onset when I introduced you here. About 50% of Americans have little or no confidence, according to this poll, in the president's ability to protect the country against terror attacks. Do you agree with that?
I understand why people are frustrated and upset, and I do recognize and agree that people are worried about the posture that this administration is taking in fighting terrorism. You know, there's a long list of blunders. You know, it starts with calling ISIS the JV. We realize how big a mistake that was. It's also not just fighting ISIS. It's what are you doing with Russia? You know, right now we're talking about winning Ramadi, but you also have Syrian forces bombing under Bashar al-Assad, bombing rebel forces that we're supporting, that are helping us in the fight against ISIS. The American people see this, they recognize this, and they're upset with how this president is dealing with these issues.
So there appears to be movement when we look at Ramadi. We've lost territory. The ISIS, I should say, has lost territory in Iraq. Stalemate in Syria. What specifically then do you think the president could be doing to better the war on terror, at least the war against ISIS?
Well, it starts with we need to increase our human intelligence collection on the ground. I think he should pick up the phone and call the director of the CIA and say, in the next 45 days, double the amount of human intelligence that's coming out of there. That human intelligence drives our military operations on the ground that we're working alongside the Iraqi forces. It's going to drive our targeting from the skies as well. And we need to have a stronger posture against Russia and saying, Russia, stop attacking the forces that we're working with in the fight against ISIS. But one area that we're definitely lacking is countering the message of ISIS. You know, ISIS is leveraging social media in a way that no terrorist organization has up to this point. And we're doing our efforts in order to counter that message are incredibly anemic, and more need to be done. We need to be working closer with our allies in the region. And some of our allies are concerned because they feel like this administration is pivoting towards Iran. Iran has a huge influence in this part of the region. They've had a long influence in Syria, and our Sunni Arab partners are concerned about that. And this is a bad message sending to the folks that we're going to need in order to really eliminate and eradicate ISIS from that region.
To your point about online, I mean, most terrorism experts will tell you we're dealing with a war against ideas, not necessarily a war against territory, although the territory is important. I wonder what you think about this. If you think that these fears are justified, it's almost 50%. We can put those numbers up. 45% of Americans believe that they or their family members will be the victim of terrorism. Is that justified?
Well, when you have events like what happened in San Bernardino and you look to what happened in Paris, these types of things can happen. I also served on a task force looking at foreign fighter travel to the United States, and one of the things that we found was that our European partners weren't sharing information the way they should about suspected terrorists. So there is an information sharing gap with our European partners that is making us more insecure. So some of those feelings are justified. But I think in y'all's poll, one of the interesting point was that this is the highest level of folks that believe when the federal government puts their mind to it, they can stop terrorists.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that concept as well.
Well, let's put this up, because the majority of people believe that the U.S. is not at war with ISIS. Do you think that we're at war with ISIS? It says who's winning. This one is who's winning.
We're at war.
Yeah, this one says who's winning, and it says the U.S., and then it goes on. But are we at war with ISIS?
We are at war with ISIS. They're trying to kill us. They're trying to attack our way of life, and this is a war. And we need to be doing everything we can to stop them and eradicate them. And the best way to do that is stop them in Iraq and Syria. But as you said earlier, we have to also be countering the ideas. And that's one area where we're falling very flat and need to be doing more.
Congressman Will Hurd of Texas, and we wish you luck with the weather system that has gone through Texas as well. Thank you for joining us today.